In this life, we're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. You will, at some stage in your life, be the villain in someone else's story. And it doesn't matter what you say or what you do or what your actions are, they will still hold that vision of you in their mind. There are literally probably over 1,000 different versions of you that exist in the minds of others. And we literally have little to no control over how they perceive us. This is why integrity is such an important word. And someone close to me recently said, nothing is more important than the integrity of one's soul. But the paradox with that is, how do you convince others of your own truth when they have their own perceptions and their own thoughts and feelings and whatnot? That is why the relationship that you have with yourself is of the utmost importance. And when you are in your truth, and when you are in your own authentic energy, and you are being who you are, and you are not changing yourself and molding yourself to fit in with someone else's perception of you, that is the magic right there. I saw a video a little while ago that was talking about authenticity as being one of the highest vibrations. And I feel when we are being authentic with ourselves, and when we are living in our own truth, and we are not trying to fit into someone else's box, that is high vibrational. That is liberating for your soul, because you are not trying to box yourself in, being, a square peg in a round hole, or vice versa, to appease someone else. And I think that's when it gets a bit dangerous. And I know this to be true for myself, because for a large portion of my life, I was a people pleaser. I wanted to be liked. I didn't want to be ostracized. And I literally would adapt and mold myself to be able to be accepted. Even my first career that I selected was based on the fact that I thought this girl was really cool. I wanted to be friends with her. She was going to a beauty therapy school. I had zero interest in beauty therapy whatsoever, but because she was going to the school, I was like, I'm going to go too. And the funny thing is I rock up to that school and she didn't end up going, because we'd paid the money and I'd made the commitment and had shuffled my whole life around it. I ended up going to beauty therapy school. And that was my very first career, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. That was a very, very expensive, I won't say mistake, because look, I have relatively good skin for a 40-year-old, and I will attribute that to going to beauty therapy school and learning about it. So it had its benefits, but that is how easily influenced I was. And that didn't stop until I got into my 30s, and I'm just like, why am I attracting these people? Why am I having these relationships? Why is nothing working out? And I was a person that was so in a victim mentality. I would blame the outside world for all the stuff that was happening. And it wasn't until I fell into the world of self-development that I started realizing, oh, I'm the problem. I'm the one who is the captain of my ship and the master of my fate. Or I think it's, I am the master of my fate. No, I'm the captain of my soul and the master of my fate. The Invictus poem. I was giving the control, I was giving the power to other people. And going, why is my life shit? It wasn't until I had a conversation that absolutely kicked my ego in the ass on a film set a few years back that it completely changed my life. And it was one of the hardest conversations that I had had up until that day, because she didn't sugarcoat it. She literally cut through the bullshit and told me exactly what I was doing. And how it came about, and I've mentioned this in another video, was she was a palm reader. And she was looking at my hands and she said, oh, you have difficulty in your relationships. And if you've seen my Vedic astrology chat, that is one of my karmas, is that I will attract people because I have trust issues, so I will naturally attract someone who is going to betray my trust, whether it's through infidelity and not being a truthful person. And the funny thing is I got a trifecta in my early 20s when I attracted someone into my life who was having multiple affairs with women throughout the whole 3-year relationship. And the icing on the cake, or the cherry on top, was it was like 5 in the morning. I opened the door. To my horror, there were 4 or 5 cops standing there, and they said, "Hey, we've got a warrant to search your house." And I was just like, "Come on in," literally, because I was absolutely shocked. And little did I know that there was a secret compartment in our walk-in wardrobe that I didn't know it was there. They found it, and in there were a whole bunch of documents for the partner that I was in a relationship with. Turns out when they ran those documents and all those details through the system, the person came up and and the person that I was in a relationship with, let's just say his name was Bob Jones. His real name was Marco, and he was wanted for a pretty nefarious crime over in Europe. That was my biggest life lesson, but if I was to do life over again, I'd do it again. And I would have that same thing happen to me, because I'm so grateful that something like that happened to me earlier on in my life, because it shaped who I am today. People are mirrors, and they will reflect back to you aspects of yourself that you have not yet healed, and aspects of yourself that you potentially don't value. And that relationship taught me that I was giving my power away. I was putting other people on a pedestal. I was putting them before me. And I was biting my tongue, and I wasn't living in my truth, and I wasn't listening to my intuition. I was placing my value and my worth in the hands of others. And that's basically what that woman said to me. I was blaming him for my position in life and my current circumstances. And what she said to me was, "You could have always said no. You could have always walked away. The choice was always yours, but you didn't. You need to take ownership and responsibility over that." And I was livid when she said that. I was so angry. My ego absolutely arced up. And I walked away feeling very defeated and very angry about what she said to me. It wasn't until 2 years later that the penny finally dropped, and I accepted the words that she said to me. That I understood for a long portion of my life I was playing the victim in my own story. And look, this is not to take away from anyone who has genuinely been a victim of a crime or something horrible, but I was running the narrative, and it was my way of getting validation and people to like me based on, "Oh, this is what happened to me, woe is me." And as a result of being in that energy, I was attracting more drama and more patterns, and I wasn't changing, I wasn't evolving. And it wasn't until I started to understand myself and form a deep relationship with myself and have integrity and own my truth that my life started to change on the external. And look, my life is not without challenges. I have my moments, but I have fostered more of an awareness around who I am and my inner voice. It comes back to the first conversation with the opening line of, "You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. You're not going to be everyone's flavor." And I'm sure you've walked into an ice cream shop and seen all the flavors out there, and there may be just one flavor that's just not quite to your liking. That is going to happen in life. We cannot please everyone. And sometimes when we're living in our truth and we're doing everything right, it is going to irritate people because they are not living in their truth. But to bring it back to that amazing quote that a beautiful friend shared with me, nothing is more important than the integrity of one's soul. And inscribed at the Temple of Apollo, it says, "Know thyself." Thank you for watching, my loves. I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day.